Hey everyone, it's Abbie G, and today I'm going to talk about my own little mental health journey in South Korea. I'm sure a lot of folks know that mental health in South Korea still is a little bit taboo, at least within the Korean community, and as a foreigner, I'm going to talk about my own experience in terms of how I cope and how I found ways to stay stable despite, kind of a lack of resources. So, yeah, I'm going to start with my first year. So, I came back here in 2017 and I actually started out in a really small town called Nonsan, which is about an hour out from Daejeon in. Maybe there are 2 or 3 other foreign teachers, but I never really had a community per se, and I think that really impacted how I navigated through my time in Korea. So actually the first few months, I would say, at least until October, I would stay home every weekend. I remember my co-teacher at the time asked me, "Oh, what are you doing this weekend?" I'm gonna stay home and clean. And I think I was just so crippled with anxiety with going out because I felt like I was a little bit trapped in and I didn't really know how to react and how to get out of the situation other than just walk around, take a hike, watch some TV. And I think that really impacted how I saw myself, that I saw that I was weak and I really couldn't do anything else other than hike, and I can't even get a train. I couldn't even get a bus rather because I was just so scared. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who goes through this, being in a different country, not being able to speak the language, especially if you're in a small town where English isn't as available to you. That really impacts how you communicate with other people, right? I think also as a foreigner, I was very self-conscious about being seen as different and, being stared at. I think the staring really impacted whether I went out or not. And of course, that really hindered on my experience in Korea. And looking back on that now, I think that time really told me that I need to be able to sit in this fear of not being able to do things correctly, getting lost is a possibility, and understand that that's just part of the process. I think I was just so scared that the only thing I knew what to do in order to enjoy my time in Korea was, it's drink, especially since the drinking culture in Korea is pretty big. Things at the time were open till like 7 a.m. I think after I started getting more comfortable with the public transportation and getting out of Nonsan and, meeting people in Seoul, I found that the only way to relax was drink. And, found other people who did the same thing. And I did that for so many weekends, even to the point where I just stayed up and took the train back home because it was, cheaper to get a taxi, or cheaper to do that than get a taxi. And that followed me up. Those habits followed all the way up until I moved to Daejeon, or, it was even worse because I had more access to places to drink during the week, and people who also had similar lifestyles were also, I want to say enabled, but very in the circle of drinking as well. And I think that really impacted my mental health. That I think I had issues leaving the US at the time that I never really resolved, right? It's funny, my friend and I had a conversation, we were just thinking about all the things that we're doing in Korea, but then thinking about how our lives are back at home, that it seems like people in Korea, at least expats, specifically maybe English teachers, there's always something at home that's not sitting well, or, it feels like someone's always running from something. And that clicked with me, especially after 6 months since coming to Daejeon of just binge drinking, going out till 7 a.m. every night. Not every night, sorry. Going out till 7 a.m. in the weekends, using Sunday to just recuperate. And, that was not healthy. And that really was not healthy mentally, because I think at some point it got to a point where I just blew up in front of all my friends. And it had to take my friend to tell me, there's some things deep inside your mental health, deep inside, your trauma, your past history in the US that you have yet to resolve. And I think using the drinking culture, using these ways to socialize was a way to essentially run away and ignore my mental health, right? And I feel like this is a lot of things that people go through in not just South Korea, but anywhere, right? Like, especially in a new place, we tend to forget that mental health is one of the main priorities we should be concerned about when being in a new place. But we're just so wrapped in the new wonders and all of the new things, new culture, that, we want to have so much fun, even if that fun can be toxic, that we tend to even push our mental health out of the way. So I think to a point, like, okay, this is not good within that year. And then thankfully I was able to incorporate some habits that led me to not drink, maybe still hang out with my friends without having to drink all the time, and focus on how I could better my mental health. And so I was looking up stuff like mental health resources in Korea. There's Facebook groups, but still there were little resources to foreigners specifically. And so that kind of made me lose hope a little bit. Like, oh, am I gonna just have to be this mentally drained, depressed the entire time I'm in Korea because there aren't any resources? And when I put that information out there, I found out I wasn't the only person experiencing this. I think a lot of people go through this, but we can't put it out there, right? Like, actually, in the application for Epic was that listing any like mental health backgrounds, and didn't state the fact that I did have a history with anxiety and depression. And because I heard if you did put that on there, then that would be a red flag for them. So, as English teachers, we can't really be open about it, but we need to be. And thankfully, I just bit the bullet. I just put myself out there. I need help. I would love if anyone had any resources. And with some digging, I found some. And so, like in Daejeon, I was able to see a psychiatrist and see, how my behavior was, and essentially kind of find my way to CBT. And so CBT is cognitive behavioral therapy, which we kind of look at our thoughts and how our thoughts are impactful towards behavior or something like that. And, be a little more logistical in it all. But of course, it doesn't work for everybody. And I don't think it really works for me particularly, but it did make me more aware of how I thought and what those thoughts meant about me, or what those thoughts meant about my mental state and whatnot. And so through that process, I was able to realize that, and the psychiatrist was able to prescribe me Lexapro, or I think the actual name for it is escitalopram. Yeah, because Lexapro is the brand name, so it's not exactly that. But thankfully, I was able to find that, because before coming to Korea, I was actually on that same medication, and I had to stop because I wasn't sure that I'd be able to find in Korea. I did not want to be dependent on it. And so, I realized, sometimes we just need medication. Like, it's okay to have medication. And that really took a long time for me to process, because there are times within my prescription history in Korea where I was like, I need to stop, right? Like, if I didn't take it one day, I would just be so off. And it's scary to be dependent on that. But I think looking back on it now, I'm very privileged to be able to take such medication, have access to that medication, and have insurance in Korea. And so I'm still going there now. However, I do realize, I think there needs to be a little more other than medication, right? There's more that I need. And I'm still looking for resources, but I think with online counseling being more available, that's been something. However, I haven't really found anything specific to foreigners in Korea, and so I'm still digging. My friend mentioned that they're seeing a counselor who is based in Seoul. But in terms of Daejeon, I'm not really able to find anyone. And I think that's also a harder thing as well, I'm noticing with mental health, is that a lot of people who really need these resources also live in rural areas, right? Because it just feels so isolating. And there aren't that many resources unless you really go to Seoul or the bigger cities. And granted, you can do things online, but I think, being in person, having that stability also impacts your mental health here. And so I'm still going through it. It's still something I'm processing and trying to find a really good foundation. Luckily, because I'm in Daejeon, there are more activities that do help me cope with my mental health. Like I mentioned before, rock climbing. Daejeon is a very bike-friendly city, so being able to just bike outside and go everywhere because there's a separate bike road really impacts how I'm able to clear my head and exercise healthy mental health. So yeah, I think being in a bigger city really impacts it, but sometimes isolation can work for some other people. Sometimes people get social anxiety, as I've seen other people, like sometimes being alone in the countryside can be more beneficial towards your mental health. But that wasn't the case for me. You're not alone in this. I'm sure my story is something that can be seen not just in Korea, but outside in different countries, and know that there are resources and we just have to do some digging. And I know doing some digging, saying like, oh, you just have to look for them, it does sound a little, insensitive, because I know as in a depressive state, in an anxious state, we just feel like we are stuck, we can't do anything. But I think that little smidge of effort, that time just to look at something, to just put your voice out there into the ether, into the void, someone will echo back. And I hope that this video will echo back towards you, wherever you are, whatever you're feeling. And that we'll be able to lift each other up, right, during these trying times, not just during COVID, but in any time in our life. And I think learning this in my own experience is that community was a big part of finding stable mental health. And I really do that. I thank my friends for it. And I feel like even not just my in-person friends, but my online friends, right? Like, and just putting your voice out there and putting it out in forums and random discords or just in random forum discords and Facebook groups, there's someone who you're able to connect to. And maybe one day you'll be able to just talk to them and really find solace in that, and find more resources like online counseling, or find a doctor that you'll be able to see for if you need to get medication as well. And so know that also that it's okay to be on medication, especially in Korea. I feel like there's a lot of things as foreigners that are really weighing down on our mental health, our job, our sense of self in our workplace. These can really impact your mental health, and it's important to use resources that we're able to find to our advantage, right? Like, I still sometimes think that I feel weak being on medication, but it's been a journey realizing that, this is part of being healthy, and that medication, this is not a sign of weakness, it's not a sign of giving up. It's just another tool that we can use to really lift ourselves up. And in addition to that, finding activities that are able to help release that stress, really help you ground yourself. That it's, that you can do it. I truly believe in you. For a long time, I didn't believe in myself. For a long time, I found validation in others. For a long time, I sought after something that really wasn't something I needed. And I'm speaking vaguely, but it might ring true to you. And I can imagine what it's like during COVID, how hard it is to connect. However, I think being in the 21st century, we're able to find more tools that we can use to connect digitally in different places, in different time zones, and really feel like we're less alone. Like, I did some digging my own, and I really would love to share those. Because, sometimes that digging does take a mental toll. So as someone who is still going through and coping through their mental health, I want to be someone that can really support someone. And, I hope this video is something that you can resonate with, that you can find hope in as well. As someone living abroad or someone living at home, that we're able to do this. And that, mental health is such a priority. And I'm thankful for my time in Korea that I've been able to realize that and really take hold and take stock of that. And that's something that I'm going to take with no matter where I move. And I hope you're able to as well. And that, Maybe it's not going rock climbing, but maybe it's something else that you find care in, that you find self-love in, and that you'll be able to, cope with the things that are going in life. And so yeah, if this is something that resonates with you, or if you feel like someone else could take something away from this video, please go ahead and share it, or go ahead and like and comment if you'd like about your own journey, or if you'd like to even talk to me personally, you can definitely DM me and we can chat there. And consider subscribing. I try to make stuff that is really helpful for other people, and I'd love to reach out to the broader community out there. So if you can subscribe, share it with other people, that'd be lit. But thank you again so much for watching. Again, you're not alone. You can do this. Drink some water, get rest, do things that make the small things in the day a little bit better, right? Have a good meal. I know the small things, at least in my experiences, they do add up. And, don't be afraid to reach out. There are people going through it, and I'm sure we just need to find each other and find professional help if we can afford it. And it seems like professional help seems out of reach, but I'd like to hope that there are more ways to make it accessible, and that because mental health is becoming such a priority, and I hope in Korea as well and globally, that we can get more access to resources wherever we are. And so that, this is just something that we're all working through. I hope you were able to take away something from this, or able to, give a little light to your day. It's a little dark in this room, but isn't it all a metaphor? Anyway, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time on one of my videos. See you next time. Bye.